Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I believe we're going to have some more participants joining in onto the webinar, but we're going to go ahead and get started today. So, hello, I'm Dr. Andrea Kretz, and I'm so glad you guys could all join us today to hear about some exciting sawfish research happening in Peru. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the mission of the Sawfish Conservation Society is to connect the world to advance global sawfish education, research, and conservation. Through this webinar series, we feature researchers and conservationists around the world who share their work and are helping to protect these critically endangered species. So we're just coming off of Endangered Species Day. That was last week, and that's a time for us to celebrate the incredible diversity of our planet and to bring awareness to the species that are at most risk of extinction, including all five species of sawfish. So it's a perfect time to highlight important research that is being conducted on these species to bring more awareness and learn about them and to help us conserve these incredibly amazing animals. Before we get started, I just want to make a quick note that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel, so you can share that and revisit this later. We'll also hold a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You can either raise your hand and ask live, or you can type your question into the chat box and we'll get to it that way. Okay, so today I'm excited to welcome our next speaker, Alejandra Mendoza. Alejandra is a fisheries engineer and holds a master's degree in ecosystem-based fisheries management. She's been working on marine conservation since 2013 in northern Peru. And she has participated in various sustainable fisheries projects and has been leading the whale shark project for the last 12 years. She studies impacts of coastal communities on marine ecosystems, works to raise awareness among the local population, and collaborates with government authorities to improve the management of threatened species. So we're very happy to have you here today, Alejandra, and sharing your research, and the floor is yours.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm going to share some of the highlights of the research I've been doing on sawfishes in Peru. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the idea of this project, but we wanted to combine not only the great tool that is the eDNA, but also we want to mix it with the ancestral knowledge that all the fishers in Peru has. So with that knowledge, we can lead to implement a better eDNA tool in the field. So my name is Alejandra Mendoza. Thank you so much for the presentation, Andrea. I'm going to start with the research. So I'm going to put it this. So world distribution, as you may know already, sawfish are likely locally extinct in a total of 55 countries around the world, which is I'm sorry, which is sorry, I had an image here, which is 58% of their historical distribution. Okay, so in Peru specifically, we know because of the literature that we used to have a lot of sawfish. There was several anecdotal encounters for many years ago, but then what happened is that it started to be an overfishing of these species, especially because the teeth was used for cockfighting spores. So this started to create a huge interest of the species, because normally when they used to call this species, they release it. But then when they discover the high price that the teeth has, they start to keep it. So before we publish this little note about some of the recent catches for Peru since 2014 until 2017, the species was classified as extirpated from Peru because we didn't see any sawfish in 14 years. But then there was some encounters, first in Ecuador, then in La Cruz, then one in Cancas, where is the place I studied the whale sharks, and that's how I had the very, very lucky event of seeing a sawfish, and then one in Mancora after a couple of years. How this interest of starting this project start, it's because in the COVID, I was contacted by Adrian Feldman and Fabian Velarde, which he is from Ecuador, and he used to work for the, well, he still works, but he works for the fisheries government, and he used to patrol all the Guayas, the Guayaquil estuary. And he told me he knew a lot of fishermen that had caught sawfishes in their nets. So this was very interesting to me because I didn't have much like talks with fishermen about these species. Very nice to hear that in some places someone was doing some research on them. It was purely anecdotal. We didn't went through much. It was COVID. We couldn't move, but because he has to be like in the field. He collects some data, and he showed me this picture, which is incredible. It's a very small saw of a sawfish. And that's how it started the interest of us to start this project, because we wanted to do a collaboration between Peru and Ecuador, because we thought that it was impossible to separate both, especially because we share a huge mangrove ecosystem. So the fishes never know which border they should cross or not. So of course we needed to do we have to team up for this. So the research was targeting to look for this large tooth sawfish using fish ancestral knowledge and eDNA tools in northern Peru. So we wanted to start with interviews. Of course, in the area, there were some interviews already conducted, but we wanted to go a little bit further with the old fishermen. We wanted to talk with this person that used to know the sea very well, to see where are the areas we should focus on specifically. Then when we had this information, we thought, okay, then we have to sample this. We have to do the water collection. And then, of course, we have to do the lab processing. At this point, we didn't know anything about eDNA. So we called a lot of people. We sent a bunch of emails. And at this point, we were like just waiting for some answers about how to do eDNA. But we started the interviews. And the interviews, this is a picture one of the volunteers in the NGO took in Lobitos. Lobitos, it's a fisherman town very close to the Virrila mangrove. It's also an estuary. As you can see, this huge sawfish is laying in the ground with a lot of people around it. So I don't know when this picture was taken, but she found it in a restaurant in Lobitos, and she took a picture and sent it to me. So it used to be caught incidentally. This is what we learned during the interviews. The fishermen were not interested at all on this species because the meat was not very tasteful. So they didn't like it. They were not targeting this species. The meat was often utilized, but they actually didn't like it. It was like, if I have it, I would prefer it, but it was not something they were craving for. But the rostrums were kept as a souvenirs. At this point, when they didn't sell the teeth, they used to keep the rostrums in their houses as a trophies. Because they already taking the meat for consumption. They were taking the rostrums to their houses. There is a lot of anecdotal stories about, for example, restaurants and some places. The old fishery ministry in Tumbes used to have a whole wall full of rostrums. That, of course, when people start to know the teeth were so valuable, they disappear. And then the teeth started to be popular for coat fattening, and the price of these could reach in Peru right now, like in the black market, because it's not allowed anymore to have them, around 700 soles, which is a little bit more of $200 for a pair. So the result was an overfish population because, of course, when they discovered that the teeth were so valuable, they started to go to these areas specifically where they used to find them to fish the sawfish. So we started our interviews in two places, in Puerto Pizarro in the north, very close to the border with Ecuador, but I also wanted to give it a try to Virrila. Virrila is also a mangrove area, a very small mangrove area and an estuary. And I wanted to have these two places because I didn't want to limit at least the interviews to one place, because maybe we can have a nice surprise. So we interviewed 49 fishers. 16 of them saw an alive fish, a sawfish, and 3 of them saw a dead sawfish. So these are the quantities of people asked, the one that has presence a live sawfish and the ones that have seen a dead sawfish. So in total, and as you can see, the most important place was Puerto Pizarro. Actually, when we went to Virrila, we questioned some people, and all of them were like, "No, we never saw this fish. Like, we never even heard about it." But in Puerto Pizarro was completely different. Completely different the scenario. Even though they haven't seen it alive or dead, they have heard about it and they knew what I was talking, like which species I was talking about. And also, when I was in Puerto Pizarro, some of the fishermen recommend me to go to Acapulco because there was a family in Acapulco that used to fish sawfish. So that's why I went to Acapulco afterwards. And after all these interviews, we decided to focus our field work in this particular square. I'm going to show you later about the samples. So one thing that was very interesting to see while I was in the field work, that basically the most rich information came from fishers, but very old fishers. They don't fish anymore. They work on land. They just stay in their houses. But they had so much information about the old times that it was so rich and so entertaining hearing their stories. Also, you need to sit there and try to stay like for a long time because they know so much, but sometimes they get lost in time. So it's quite interesting and quite rich to talk to them. But I actually realized that we are losing a lot of valuable information and ancestral knowledge with them, because when I visit some houses, because one of them told me, "Oh, I have this friend, he used to have this rostrum, you should go to see him." And I went to their house and some of them were passed already. COVID hit hard in this region, so a lot of the old fishermen died in that time. This fisherman in the bottom right was already blind, but it was very interesting because he was the one that used to fish a lot of sawfish in the area. And then I interviewed his 2 sons, and the 2 sons remembered a lot about his father taking sawfish in front of their houses. So the historical catches for the interviews reported were like they report all year round. They fish sawfish, but it was for sure a tendency that that was focused on the wet season. That for us it's February, March, April. This is very interesting because when we published this note in 2017 about the encounters we had in the recent years of sawfishes, we actually found that the sawfish were caught in January, February, and March. So we thought, okay, perfect, because we are going to focus on these months to do our water collection for the eDNA, no? So we thought like, okay, perfect, because obviously we have to focus in a time frame in an area as well, because it's not very cheap to go out into water and do all this water collection, no? And something interesting is that we find out, even though that the biggest like the report the biggest part of the fishermen reported they have seen a sawfish over like more than 20 years ago. Actually, in the recent years, in the last 10 years, 4 sawfish were reported. So this is not, for us, this is not a small quantity, no? Because if we consider this, that they were not reported, let's say for IMARPE or for some researcher, this has been like out of the picture so far. Normally they told us that the sawfish were juvenile. They found the sizes less than 3 meters. So this is very interesting as well. We had this small rostrum from the Guayaquil Gulf, and then we have some reports of juveniles in Tumbes. So this is very interesting because we also have the big animals, no? Maybe they are coming to release their pups, who knows, in the mangroves. And the fishing gear, the fishing gear that the interviewed people show as the most important was bottom nets. Bottom nets are a huge problem because they are targeting normal starfish and squatinas, and of course they put their nets in shallow waters close to the mouths of the rivers. These are the ones that used to caught sawfish, but also all the reports that we had in Peru in the note we did in 2017 were also from bottom nets. So it's a very dangerous gear for this species. And the habitat related to the sawfish were river mouths and coast and islands. When I say islands, they are more like sand islands. They are not like volcanic islands with a deep slope. It's more like sand islands that are close to the Gulf of Guayaquil, which means that it's still shallow waters, shallow waters, no? So the usage that the fisher gave the ones they caught the sawfish was basically the rostrum and the meat. Some of them were released. Some of the fisher mentioned that when they caught the animal and it was very small, they just like untangled and release it. Something that they also mentioned when they were very big that they couldn't release it, that they just kill it because they don't want to lose their nets. 11 fishers mentioned that the use of the sawfish, like they use the sawfish to sell the teeth, something that we already know. And they also identified as a possible threats overfishing, habitat destruction, and climate change. Because we also gave them the opportunity to tell us their story, what they have present in the past 10 years, 20 years, how they see the water has changed, the species distribution has changed. So some of them address these threats. And this is the mangroves of Tumbes. So it's pretty pristine and pretty nice. This is the sanctuary part. We have 2 parts I'm going to show you now, but One is the sanctuary, which is a protected area, and the other part it's more like a touristy area, not much protected. So in this part, I don't know if you can see my mouth, but in the bottom, like the let's say the left side, we have some areas, pointed areas in gray that we determined it was important to go and look there. And in the other side is the mangrove, is the sanctuary we share with Ecuador. It's the mangrove area. So we have these two areas, so we decided that we were going to focus there. So what we do is to try to separate these areas in smaller areas, and then we did like a random sampling. So we choose random sites with QGIS. You can use the random placing, and that's how we were going to go to the area and try to look for them. So we did the same from the mouth of the river. So if you see the part of the left side is the mouth of the Rio Tumbes, the Tumbes River, and the other side is the sanctuary. So what we decide is that, okay, we have these areas, we're going to do random sampling, and we have options, option 1, option 2, option 3. So we go to the option 1. If we can sample in option 1, we will sample there. But when you go to the actual area and go to point 1, sometimes it was, for example, a sand mountain, a sandbank. You couldn't actually go through. Sometimes it was full of vegetation, you couldn't access. Sometimes it was too shallow, we couldn't take that's why we have several options for each small area, and that's how we actually choose these areas. And for this, as you can see, for this size, we sample all these yellow points. The left side is the Tumbes River, and the right side is the sanctuary. So the locations chosen based on results of the interview. So we choose these two places because this was the most popular area where all the fishermen told us that they found the sawfishes. But how do we do it? We didn't know how to do it. So we contact the University of Southern Mississippi. We contacted specifically to Nicole Phillips, and she assisted us with the eDNA methodology, and she provided us with the protocols and the equipment to do so. So, of course, we aim to find sawfish DNA, but we also need to make sure that our control sample was negative, because if we had a contaminated control sample, everything was going to be screwed. So we wanted to have everything perfectly, and we were so afraid because we needed to have everything clean. We were actually like over worried about this. Then when you're in the field, you know that you have to bleach everything and everything is going to be fine. So for the sample collection, we prepared the Niskin bottles, which was crazy difficult, but I had Sarah and Carmen helping me. They were amazing with the Niskin bottle, because I was in charge of the clean part of the boat, so I couldn't actually manipulate this part. So we took the Niskin bottle in the water. Normally we first measure the depth, put the Niskin bottle in the water, try to have at least around half a meter from the bottom, take the sample half a meter from the bottom. And then when we pull it back to the boat, we fill 3 bottles of 1 liter. We put it in a big box to keep it cool, and then we went to the next place. Every time we move to a place, we bleach everything, and then we put it with like clean water again. And at some point during the day, sometimes at the beginning, sometimes at the end, we took our control samples to make sure all the process during the day was like contamination free. The filtering was a whole new experience as well. So we have to set everything clean. Once we finish with the water collection, we have to go to the house, shower ourselves, change clothes, clean the whole area that we're going to work on, and then we will start to use the pump. So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's really simple. If you see the numbers 3 and 4, this is where the filter is placed. So the water that we took from the field work, it's coming inside from the 4, and it's going 3, 2, 1, going inside the pump, and then going out again from the bottom part, the number 2, and going to a big bucket. Basically, in this step, you just have to be patient because some of the samples are from river water. River water can be, or mangrove water can be very, very murky with a lot of particles suspended. So sometimes it took a little bit longer. And because you have to bleach everything every time, and then put water on it and then bleach it again and dry and everything, change gloves and everything. This process that seems very simple could take a little bit longer than it shows. So as you can see, I set my kitchen with plastics everywhere. We bleach everything, the floor, etc. And that's how we filter all the samples. So at the end, we did 5 sample days, and we took 1 control each day. We did 24 sites, and in total were 72 liters, and we used 41 filters. Sometimes you can have 3 liters with 1 filter. Sometimes you can have 1 liter with 1 filter. That depends on how murky and how much material the water has in it. So yeah, and the great advice that Nicole gave us is, when in doubt, bleach it. So sometimes you're like so tired that you already don't know if you bleach it or not, and it's okay, I don't remember, I need to bleach it again. Okay, so after that, we pack everything. Something I forgot to tell, we had to do the sampling, the water sampling in two different times. Why? Because the sanctuary needed some permits that arrived a little bit late. So one of the part that we did in the river, in the mouth of the Tumbes River, was done in March, and the part of the sanctuary was done in July. Okay, and then when we had all the permits, we did this, and we put everything, we sent everything to Nicole. And well, the lab processing, I did it, I was not much involved, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you know how this works. So they extract the eDNA from the filters, and they put some amazing chemicals and remove the unwanted substances. So they had like the clean eDNA. And then the DNA needs to be prepared with primers and probes. Primers to identify the species we want, and the probes, if I'm not mistaken, is to have this fluorescence in the sample. And then it goes to a droplet generator that breaks the DNA in 20,000 tiny droplets. And then they are like they are under heating and cooling processes to allow the DNA to be copied. And at the end, the droplet reader need to find this fluorescence if there is presence of sawfish in the sample. I think this technique is amazing. It's crazy to think that you can find you can have such an amazing sensitivity in a machine. And this is basically how you will look. Like they can detect 0.25 picograms of the eDNA, even like that small, that can be detected by this technique. No, it's crazy. So it's very, very reliable that if you have sawfish in the water, you may find it with this technique. So the big surprise for us was that we actually found sawfish DNA in the water. And the DNA was found in the farther point inside of the sanctuary, which is amazing, because if they are there, there is not much risk that they are going to be fish or killed, let's say. But actually, all of this area outside of the mouths, it's fishing ground. It's fishing ground for bottom gillnets. So from one side, it's cool that we find it inside, but if they need to leave at some point, it's going to be challenging for them. So the interesting part, as I told you a few minutes ago, is that we did the southest part in March, because we were expecting to do actually all our sampling in March, because the interview showed that, the data from the publication in 2017 show us that we needed to focus on austral summer, but because of the permits we couldn't, so we did it in July. And what happened, we found sawfish in July in the sanctuary. So these are the kind of things that destiny give you, like the great surprises and the accidents that makes you discover these kind of things, no? So this is what I wanted to tell you. My discussion here, which is something that I really want to go further, is that in this note we wrote in 2017, we were implying that the encounters of Peru were actually because the presence of this species was in Central America, and they were migrating, as some publication of Kane suggested, that they were migrating south. And because of it, we have them exactly in this part of the year. However, we had this only encounter in Ecuador that was registered in July. It was for Rigoberto Rosas of the University of Ecuador at that point. So this also matches with the encounter that this person had in 2014. So we had the March episodes that were recorded with encounters that we had from fisheries, but now this eDNA shows that they might be here also in July. If they found a big animal in Ecuador in July, and now we find eDNA in the sanctuary, probably they can also be here in that season. And something that we found in the interviews that we also suggested in the note we did, it was that the gill nets are a major threat for the survival of sawfishes. Especially the three animals we recorded were fished in bottom gill nets, and mostly all the fishermen that were talking about the sawfish they saw alive, it's because they caught them in bottom gill nets as well. So the future of steps is to have more information. We did these very nice t-shirts about Se Busca Pez Sierra, which is like wanted in that kind of using this as a joke, like. But then there is several steps of how, like, the characteristic of this species and how to untangle in case you find it in your nets. And also there is the contact of Fabian in Ecuador and my contact here in Peru. So if someone sees a sawfish, they can report to us. We need to do for sure more eDNA. We have to collect more water. There is a few places that we can go, and maybe all year round would be a um, very nice idea to have, because now we were focusing in some months and we didn't find any in those months. Maybe we can find in the sanctuary all year round, maybe not. So I think ideally it's to have samples all year round in different places along this coast. And for sure, I think this is more like in the future, if we find some grounds for them, try to look for them, to look for alive individuals in the field. I really wanted to acknowledge some people that helped me a lot in this research. My friends that drove us to the border, and especially to Nicole Phillips and all her help, the University of Southern Mississippi, Patricia Charvet for sending me the best audios and directions of the areas I should look for. Brian Huerta, because he processed all the samples in the lab. Renan Flores, which is a IMARPE observer, he helped us a lot to introduce the fishermen. And of course, the fishers, incredible patients at the support for the project. And yeah, Sarita, Carmen, they were with me in every sampling. So, and Adrian Feldman as well, from the back, but always helping. Thank you so much. That would be all.
Thank you so much for your very interesting presentation, Alejandra. That's so exciting. You got a positive detection of eDNA for sawfish.
Wow.
It's very encouraging. I'll
Yes.
go ahead and open up the floor to Q&A if anyone wants to type their question in the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand and ask a question. I'll go ahead and start with a question. So in the one area that you mentioned, um, the most sawfish had been seen alive, the Puerto Pizarro, that's correct.
Yes.
Why do you think that that's an area where people have seen more? Do you think it's because there's a higher fishing effort, or you think the habitat is better, or a combination of those things?
For sure, it's a combination of both, for sure. So you have, it's a big area of mangroves. It's an area that we share mangroves with Ecuador. So the border is just in the place where the sanctuary is. We have the sanctuary in one side, and the other side's already Ecuador. Um, so you have the perfect ecosystem, let's say. And then you have the sanctuary, which is nice because you have an area that is protected. But right outside and very close by, you have one of the biggest ports in Puerto Pizarro, in Tumbes, which is Puerto Pizarro. It's the last port, the last landing port before the border. So yeah, there's a lot of fishing pressure around that area. Actually, I started in that area looking for whale sharks because in this area they were reporting a lot. It's a very productive area. You have the river coming as well. So it's a very productive area for mantas, whale sharks, and yeah, sawfish.
Okay, until another question is asked, I'll just keep asking some questions. So it sounded like there might be some positivity with the local fishermen in terms of being open to safely releasing sawfish. And I think you mentioned that you either have some guidelines, or are you talking with these fishermen, or is that a future step to if they encounter a sawfish to kind of help instruct them on how to safely handle and release them from their nets, if that's a possibility? I understand in a lot of areas the fishermen don't want to
Mm.
uh, risk damaging their nets. But do you think that they're open to that conversation with you?
I think for sure, yes. You can still find some very thoughtful fishers in the beach. Like they don't want to they want to protect the endangered species. They understand how valuable they are for the ecosystem. So they tell you, yeah, if I see a baby, I never keep them. Like I always untangle them, and it doesn't matter if I have to cut my net. There is others that say like, no way, it's a lot of money. I need to take that money. I think we have to target the fisherman that still wants to work with you, because these kind of fishers are the one that, for example, they were, if you want to go outside, I can show you. That's how I get to these parts. Like there was this fisher that told me like, yeah, I saw this a few years ago. I can show you. You can come tomorrow with me in the boat. So that's how I jump in his boat to look for this area. So I think it's important to work with these kind of fishers. When other fishers see the work, they normally are very enthusiastic to keep doing it. So I think there is hope.
That's very encouraging.
Yeah.
Patricia, you have your hand up. You can ask your question.
Yay. Thank you, Alejandra, for the very nice talk. It was amazing to see all the results coming along and really happy that you got a ping there for DNA. So they are there, even if we don't ever see them and a lot of people report they're gone. The question I was gonna ask is a bit about related to what has been asked already. But do you think that you could move forward by having fishers as partners, and usually for projects that you need to change behavior in terms of not killing and releasing them, could you have like fishers that would be champions in terms of getting the word out to release and not to kill those animals, even if it's a lot of money? Because that seems to work. I don't know if you thought about keep a project running in terms of awareness and education. So eventually, even if it's in a refugee, it can come out. But if it does come out, it would at least have a chance with some of the fishers. What are your thoughts about that? Would they be responsive to an education project? And probably you could get funding for that. So just a
I think,
thoughts.
yeah, thank you, Patricia, for all the help also during the project. Yeah, I for sure think that you can find champions for sure. Like when you are out doing interviews, sometimes you see these people. It's very sad because they also have a lot of information to share and they want to show you. I was happy this person like approached to me and say, hey, I have seen this. My father used to fish this, and I can take you if you want. So I think you can find champions. For sure, it's a lot of work because to try to create awareness from someone that has all the enthusiasm, but also sometimes don't have the tools to fully understand, it's a lot of work to do so. But I think you can do it. I think with effort, it's everything is possible. And in every place I have been, like during this part in this particular in like study and with the whale shark as well, you always find the right person to want who wants to collaborate with you. So I think it's possible to find it. Not only not only the fishers that are there, but also I met a lot of park rangers that work in the sanctuary that were very committed to help during the research. So I think you can find the right person to do that for sure.
I have another question. A DNA question. I'm not an expert at eDNA, but I was thinking about that slide where you were showing the positive detection of the sawfish, and it looked like maybe one dot on the screen. So does that mean that's a very low concentration of DNA? in this system. And I do recall you saying that you only need a very, very small concentration because like I think the tests are very sensitive to it. But do you think that that means the sawfish was there recently? Does it have any effect, like the amount of particulates that are found, does that relate to how recently a sawfish was in the system, or do you think that that could be from maybe bottom water being um, zhuzhed up and the DNA being re-entered into the system? Or can you elaborate on that a little bit for me, please?
I'm not 100% sure because I'm not an eDNA expert either, but which I understand is that the DNA of any animal can stay in the water for around, let's say, 2 weeks. So of course, if it's in the bottom and it's already in the sediment and the sediment is not moved, probably you won't see it. But if the animal is there and you catch a tiny bit of DNA, you will find it with this tool. So it made me think that I don't know if I didn't, and it's also a little bit of luck, right? Because I don't think we have a huge population of sawfish in that particular area. I think we had the luck that we had DNA just there. Yeah, I think if we like as we found one spot, I think we can find more for sure. But it's always about how many samples you should do, right? Because you never know, you have to do the whole process until you know, okay, why I didn't focus all my resources in this area. Then you need to start knowing the area where are the most probabilities to find the sawfish, and maybe start to targeting your resources to this particular area, and maybe with the time in a more particular time frame. But this was the first approach. In the whole area, we also left Virrila outside, which it was further south. We just kept the river mouth and the sanctuary, which is a mangrove sanctuary. And probably if we keep doing this, maybe we can focus only in the sanctuary and in the different parts. This particular area was very interesting because it was like a small, like branch of the mangrove. So it was very, like, let's say, cozy. If someone needs to be protected, should be there. So I think these areas should be explored more in the future.
Sounds like you've got a lot of field work ahead of you, and hopefully you'll get some more positive DNA hits in that area for sure. Do we have any other questions for Alejandra?
I'll ask a question. I just don't know how to put my hand up.
Oh,
I don't know how to use technology. You might have said this, but I didn't catch it. Any plans to expand into doing similar work with the interviews and things in Ecuador, or you primarily want to stay focused on Peru and kind of disentangling when they're there and where they're using those habitats before moving on to another location?
Yeah, for sure, Ecuador is in the near future. We would love to. The sanctuary share a huge water body. Like we share a water body that goes with a lot of branches. So if I would have more opportunities to do research, I would do it more in the other branches of the mangrove, not only in the Peruvian part, because I only went to the Peruvian part, but also in the Ecuadorian part. Some areas that I would love to explore would be the islands, the sand islands that are like in front of the Guayaquil Gulf. And inside of the Guayaquil Gulf would be amazing. But sadly, Ecuador is not at its best moment. We already have some problems to start the project at the beginning because the border was shut down because of the problems with the cartels over there. So right now, I don't know if it's possible to go further in this part, but for sure the sanctuary, the share part, I think it's safe to say that we can start around there because I think it has a lot of potential, yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, before we wrap up, I just want to say don't forget to visit our website, the sawfishconservationsociety.org, to learn more about sawfish. And you can also access a variety of educational resources. You can also visit our Facebook and Instagram pages for updates, and of course, our YouTube page for past webinars and interviews. Again, another huge thank you to Alejandra for presenting your research today. We wish you luck in the future, and we can't wait to see what your research brings. And hopefully that means conservation for large-tooth sawfish in Peru. So thank you all again, and we hope to see you in future webinars.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you, everyone.